What's up, everybody? We are live. How's it going, guys? It's been a while since I've done a YouTube live. I did part one a while back, and wow, the response was incredible. I see we're getting more and more people as we're hopping in. Guys, let's go ahead and get this started. So I want to go ahead and make a part two of this anxiety mastermind. So for those of you guys who kind of know about what I do, the main thing what I do is really I help people overcome this. That's the main thing I do. I don't really create content. I'm not really like into social media that much, although it is right now. My main source of work, my main thing that I do is helping people fully overcome. So I did a part one probably over a month ago, if not longer, really helping people understand how to overcome this. Now, this part of the video is going to be part two. So I want to start a little bit before, which is part one. And guys, while I'm doing this, go ahead and post me your questions. I'll go ahead and go over some questions as I'm explaining how this recovery journey looks like, okay? So America says part one is amazing. America's on my team. And she's pretty incredible. She has an amazing success story, by the way. If you haven't seen her success story, check it out. Her English is amazing, no matter what she says. You guys will concur with me. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so how to overcome anxiety, right? Now, when I'm referring to anxiety, what I'm really referring to is a stress response. Here's what I mean. I'm talking about physical symptoms due to anxiety. So if you're feeling dizziness, palpitations, nausea, vertigo, these kinds of things, a lot of physical symptoms. Now, the physical symptoms really threw me off. I made so many of these videos on physical symptoms, and I could probably literally make 1,000 of them, because truth is that anxiety can create so many physical symptoms, right? So it's very easy for people to try to think that the physical symptoms is caused by something that's like really scary, you know? And so rather than just recognizing it's anxiety and that if you just let it be, it goes away. One of the first questions is, how do we get rid of burping? That's the whole issue. If you're trying to get rid of something, that's how it stays, you know? That this isn't like a headache in the same way, you know? This isn't like, okay, I have a headache. How do I make a headache go away? Okay, take an aspirin. How do I make this go away? How do I make that go away? It's just part of the anxiety. If you just let it be, it ends up going away. So the physical symptoms is number one. The second part is the intrusive thoughts. What happens is that people, when they're sensitized, when they're experiencing anxiety, they get these intrusive thoughts that scare them. See, I can have a thought and not be scared by it, right? Like, I mean, and historically people are like this, right? They'll have a thought, they'll be like, oh, that's a dumb thought, and they'll let it slide. However, when you're struggling with anxiety, you'll notice that the thoughts are really strong, and you'll notice your body will overreact as well. So the second part is the intrusive thoughts. The third part is what we call the feelings of unreality, derealization, depersonalization. Now, the truth is derealization, depersonalization is part of the stress response. A lot of people like making derealization, depersonalization, and anxiety two separate things, because there's two different mechanics. But the truth is that the solution is still the same. It doesn't matter. The solution is exactly the same. So people experience derealization, depersonalization. They have this out-of-body experience. They feel like there's something really wrong that's happening, that they feel like they're like, you know, getting this existential anxiety. What's the meaning of life? What's the point of this? Why am I here? Is any of this real? What's the point of all this? The fourth part is the emotions that people experience, the numbness, the feelings of sadness, the kind of the shock of who this person is. Like, you know, they used to be somebody else, and now all of a sudden their confidence is gone, and now they don't know who they are. And so they're like, you know, will I ever go back to the old person? I just don't feel like I have the joys in life that I used to. That's the emotions. And then the fifth is really panic attacks, which is just an extreme form of excess adrenaline flooding the body and just burning itself out. Okay, so the first thing we talked about is understanding the mechanics and putting all these 5 things under the anxiety umbrella. See, so many of you guys think that you guys have 10 different problems because you guys have 10 or 15 different symptoms. But the truth is you really only have one problem. And that feels good too, recognizing that it's only all one problem. Everything else is just a manifestation of one problem, right? Like imagine getting the flu, right? Let's say you have the flu and you have a headache, a fever, like night sweats, you get cold, you start shivering. You don't have 5 different issues. You really just have the flu. This is how anxiety is too. You can be having intrusive thoughts. You can be having physical symptoms, feelings of unreality, panic attacks, the emotions. You may only have 3 of those things. You may only have 1 of those things. You may have all 5 of those things. It doesn't matter. The issue is that it's still anxiety. The symptoms are just the manifestations of how your body's manifesting the anxiety. And no 2 people will experience the same forms of manifestation. So it's important to recognize that a lot of times when people are struggling with anxiety, they try to find people with the exact same symptoms as them, like the exact one-to-one. And it's unnecessary because it's still just one problem. It's still the anxiety. It doesn't matter just because, you have a headband sensation and the other person doesn't, that person's struggling with something different. So understanding the mechanics of anxiety, really all of it really boils down to the fight or flight response, which is it's a survival response, or it could be a trauma response, which is depersonalization, derealization. I don't like differentiating these just because it confuses people, and you don't need to be a neuroscientist to understand how recovery works. You don't. As long as you know that these symptoms aren't scary and that what your body is responding to is actually totally appropriate, it makes sense, and that there's not something inherently wrong with you, well, then that's the main thing. That's the main key to understand. So everything can be boiled down to what we call this fight or flight response, and the freeze response. And so this is a natural defense mechanism designed to protect you from threats, right? Like it's designed to protect you from predatory threats. The issue right now is that you are experiencing these symptoms while there's no threat, right? Like it would make sense if a bear is trying to attack you, but there's no bear. So why are you having these breathing issues? Why are you having these panic attacks? Why are you having these palpitations? So what you naturally do is you become hyper-focused on the symptom in itself. And that's a whole issue, because what happens is that this is how it becomes a loop. See, what happens is that the symptom scares you. You're trying to find what's going on. You don't know, so you latch on to the symptom in itself. So it becomes a vicious cycle. This is how people get trapped into the cycle. This is how people don't get out. One of the first things to understand is, number 1, you're really struggling with one problem, anxiety. Number 2, putting all these symptoms under one umbrella, the anxiety umbrella. Now, in this video, part 2, I'm going to be responding to how to respond, how to get out of this. Yeah, the solution for recovery. And guys, if you want to know, if you guys are like tired of trying to figure this out on your own and trying to piecemeal it and trying to like be like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And you just want guidance and you just want me, my team, just to help you fully overcome, you can go in and apply on the application and see if you're a good fit. And we'll just guide you ourselves. We'll just take you to recovery. We'll give you the exact steps you need for your specific situation and just guide you through recovery. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple of questions. Yeah. Zain Sahi says, I have a question. I don't have panic attacks. DPDR is reduced, but still I don't feel normal. The normalcy tends to come later. See, with anxiety recovery, the symptoms disappear in layers. It's not like all of them go away at once. So sometimes some symptoms will go away and then some symptoms will be just a little bit more stubborn. Those symptoms take a little bit more time. So the solution really is time. How not to be scared of all the sensations and feelings of DPDR. Understanding what's happening. It's as simple as that. If you understand what's happening, then they're not comfortable, but you're not scared of it. A lot of the reasons why people are scared of it is because they feel like their palpitations is the onset of a heart attack. They feel like their DPDR is due to some astral world that they've kind of gone into or something like that, when it's none of those things. It's just a response. So understanding is key. If you guys don't understand, that's recover. It doesn't matter what the solution is. Doesn't matter what I tell you for the solution. It's not going to work. This is why it's so important, guys, for you guys to watch part 1. This is also one of the reasons why when we're guiding people step by step, so much of it is just helping them understand what's happening. Because if they don't understand what's happening and we're trying to tell them the solution, it doesn't work that way. And a lot of people naturally want quick fixes. They want a simple solution. Okay, anxiety made them fall in because of one specific thing. Not true. There's a lot of different factors that are happening. And so that makes recovery a little bit more complicated, but it's not difficult per se still. Recovery is, I always say, recovery was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but it was also the simplest. And so I think sometimes it's the simplicity that throws people off. Let's see. These are all great questions. I don't want to get too much into the questions just because I want to talk about part 2 because I know a lot of people are here, but I'm still going to answer a couple, yeah? Shaan, you're such a big help. Thank you. This is great. I suffer from nausea 24/7. Shaan would say, if you throw up, who cares? Just throw up. Yeah. Lucy, yeah. When I would get nauseous, I would repeat that to myself, and guess what? I never threw up. Yeah, and Lucy's doing great now. Lucy's one of the clients. She's actually one of the advanced members now. She's overdoing it. No, sorry, she's doing really well. Sorry, I was reading the next question. The next question is, can I overdo exposure? Sometimes when I go out somewhere too far away from home, I get panic attacks after panic attacks, and I use the aware process. And when I come home, I'm even more scared to go out. I would want to dive in a little bit more into your situation, to be quite honest with you, to see what's happening. Can you overdo exposure? No. Like everybody else that's not struggling with anxiety, they just live their lives. I mean, they're not focused too much on exposure. I created a video not too long ago, actually my most recent video, about why exposure doesn't work. And the idea is that too many people use exposure as like a crutch in itself. The idea of exposure, guys, is to really show you guys that whatever you guys are scared of is not, like, nothing bad's gonna happen. But once you get to that point, then the goal should be just going back to living freely. Yeah. Like I never really looked at exposure. I never really thought too much about exposure during my recovery journey. I exposed myself in situations where I really thought I wasn't going to make it. And then when I realized, oh my God, it's fine, everything that I thought bad was going to happen didn't happen, then it was like, okay, well then why am I wasting my time? Let me just go live life. And if the symptoms are there, so be it. Who cares? Just let the panic attacks come and just move on. And if the physical symptoms are there, that's fine. Just tolerate them and just keep going. And that was it. But I see a lot of times, a lot of people are too focused on exposure. Am I doing it right? Am I doing this? Exposure in itself becomes a technique. Exposure is not really a technique per se. The idea of exposure is a technique, but only to help you understand that there's nothing to be fearful of. Once you get to that stage, then the key is focused on regaining your life. That being said, let's talk about the solution. Okay, so let's bring it back to part 1, right? Which is understanding the mechanics. If you believe, which you need to believe because it's true, that your symptoms is not due to some undiagnosed medical condition or the fact that you're going crazy or the fact that something terrible is wrong with you. Once you understand that all this is anxiety, well, that should take a lot of the weight off to help you understand that, okay, this is anxiety, that even though this sucks, this is uncomfortable, that there's really nothing wrong with you. So if you know that, then what should the solution be? Well, the way to answer this is to really help you understand what you've been doing up to this point. So think about it this way. Everything you've been doing up to this point, every single thing you've been doing up to this point has been to fight this, to fix this, to analyze this, to kind of avoid these things so that you can just not have to deal with it. And just like, the idea is that if you avoid it, you won't feel it. And if you don't feel it, you won't feel so bad. But that's the issue. That's the issue with it, yeah? So the solution to this is the opposite. Allow it to come in. Embrace it. Let it come, and no matter what happens, it's totally okay. Allow it to happen. I have an acronym in the book, in the report. If you guys haven't downloaded the link, if you click on any one of my YouTube videos, you'll see a link to the report. You can go ahead and download that report. It's absolutely free. I use this acronym called AWARE. AWARE is just more, it's like allowing, but it's more of a scaffold. It allows you to kind of break down the steps of allowing. So let's break down AWARE. AWARE, A stands for acknowledge and accept, right? So, okay, you're feeling palpitations, or let's say panic attacks, since people have been talking about panic attacks. You're experiencing panic attacks, okay? So a panic attack comes in while you're outside at the grocery store. Okay, panic attack comes in. Now, typically, historically, you would feel the panic attack. Oh no, why is it happening? What's happening here? I got to get out of here. I got to go home. Oh no, why is this happening? Oh my God, so like, and then people end up, slowly becoming agoraphobic. So now let's look at the solution to anxiety. Okay, so the first step is acknowledge and accept. Okay, panic attack comes. Okay, a panic attack is coming. Shaan, it's here. It's coming. Then you accept it. Okay, I'm not going to try to fight this. I'm not going to try to fight this. You're not distracting yourself. You're acknowledging that it's there and you're accepting it. Now, your typical response when you have a panic attack at a grocery store is, okay, I need to get out of here. Okay, so we have A, which is acknowledge and accept. The W is wait and watch. Wait and watch is to stop you from doing impulsive things. No, typically individuals will have an impulse of, I need to get out of here now. I need to leave. Wait and watch makes them stay there and just wait and see what happens. Observes it, not judges it, not says this is good, this is bad, why is this happening to me, this is wrong, did I do something wrong? Just acknowledges it, accepts it, and waits and watches. Okay? You acknowledge, you accept, you wait, and you watch. And then the next A, right? Because the acronym is AWARE, A-W-A-R-E. The next A is action. Action meaning you continue doing whatever you were doing, whatever it is. So if you were in a grocery store looking for a can of beans, you're going back to that with the panic attack there. No longer trying to fight it, no longer trying to fix it. Let it come through. Then the R is repeat. You keep doing that during the whole duration of the panic attack, and then it ends. Now, you may think, okay, Shaan, yeah, but what happens if I pass out? Look, every time somebody says this to me, I always ask them the same questions. Cool. Okay, well, listen, tell me, how many times have you passed out? The answer is always 0. Or Shaan, what if I stop breathing? Or Shaan, what if this happens? What if that happens? Every time I ask them what happens, nothing. Now, why do you think that is? Do you think that's because they ran away in time before it happened? Do you think they managed to get into their car and get home before anything bad could really happen? No. The reason why they didn't experience it is because they were never going to experience it the first time. Hey, chill. Sorry, Layla's barking a little bit. So that was never going to happen in the first place. So the main key to understand is that whatever you were fearing to happen, let it happen. Let it happen. Lucy just brought up a good point, which is like, well, she used to fear throwing up. And the idea is that if you threw up, okay, throw up. Just do it. Just throw up. It's not that big of a deal. A lot of the issues you guys are experiencing is because you guys are making it a bigger deal than it is. I know it's uncomfortable. I know that sounds insensitive. Trust me, I've been in the exact shoes you guys have been. Whatever scares you guys, oh my God, it's the exact same thing that, it was debilitating. However, whatever is the scariest thing was going to happen, I just came up with this attitude of just let it happen. Okay. And then what happens is that the panic attack always ends. It always ends. It has to end. Why does it end? Well, if you understand the mechanics of anxiety, panic attacks happen from a flood of adrenaline and other stress hormones that just release from your body fully. Now, the stress hormones are finite. They're not infinite. So there's going to be a point where it burns itself out. Now, this doesn't matter if you're fighting it, analyzing it, or you're just letting it be. What you will find is the quicker you allow it to burn itself off, the faster it goes away. So that's one of the examples of allowing and accepting. Now, how do you allow and accept with physical symptoms? Well, let's say you have palpitations. Let's say you have dizziness. Let's say you have nausea. Let's say you have vertigo. Let's say you have let's say DPDR. Okay, let's throw DPDR into this too. And so you experience that. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm feeling DPDR. I'm feeling palpitations. Okay. Typically when that happens, it's always good to understand, what do you typically do in the past? And it's always something to do to make this go away. Either you fight it, you analyze it, you try to fix it, you run away from something. This time, just let it be. Now, guys, let's break it down a little further, okay? Why does letting it be make recovery happen, right? Because it doesn't really make sense if you think about it, because it's like, well, if something's happening to you, whether you respond positively or negatively, what's the point? It's happening to you, right? Think about it that way, right? Like it's cause and effect. If the cause is happening, who cares how you respond? Who cares about the effect? The cause has already happened. The truth with recovery is that the effect means everything. The way you respond means everything. What happens is that you guys have gotten stuck in a loop that won't end. You guys are in a vicious cycle that won't end. Because it's a cycle, the cause affects the effect, and the effect affects the cause. What that means is that if you respond to the physical symptom in a negative way, in a way of fear, that fear reinforces the symptom. This is a cycle. This isn't a line. This is a cycle. You have to understand this. Again, this is why understanding the mechanics is so important before even focusing on the solution. The reason why I didn't even talk about the solution in part 1 is because this is important to understand. As we're guiding people step by step through recovery, I need them to understand every single piece. This is something you have to stack on top. It's not like this is what you do. Oh yeah, by the way, make sure you know this. There's a systematic order in this. It has to be. So it's really important to understand what's happening. If you can understand that your responses affect that symptom occurring later in the future, well, then you'd stop doing that right away. And then the connection for anxiety recovery makes sense. You understand that the solution is in the response. Now, does that mean that the symptom doesn't bug you? Does that mean the symptom doesn't annoy you? No, the symptoms are very, very, very uncomfortable. But it's important to recognize that the reason why they're so uncomfortable is because of the behaviors you've done in the past, because of the catastrophizing you've done in the past, where it's like, oh, why is this happening? Is this me? Oh my God, what if this is this? What if it's that? All that builds up momentum. And what that does is that sensitizes your nerves to an extreme level. And what happens is you naturally become very hypersensitive to the smallest things. You become naturally more hyper aware of these things. So the focus on recovery is letting it be, allowing the symptoms. Don't try to fight it. Now, if you notice that when you guys are doing this, you guys will notice that it's actually really difficult to allow and accept. Why? Why is it so hard to allow and accept? Well, it's because you've had a habit that you've developed for so long about resisting. Resisting has become in itself a habit. So it's not just the anxiety that's been there, it's been the habits that are formed. And a lot of people don't recognize the habits they've developed over time. You know, even in the mentorship, when we're guiding people, the first thing I have to make them do is stop fighting it, but they notice it's so hard. And so it's so funny because it's like, yo, just don't do anything. But that's the hardest thing for them. My main thing for them is to stop trying to fix this, because every time people fix it, myself included, we always mess things up. So don't try to fight it. Let it be. But you'll notice that, especially in the beginning too, it's very hard. This is why this whole thing is a practice. You know, people think, oh, okay, it's just acceptance. Acceptance isn't that easy. I guarantee you acceptance is the hardest thing for you guys to do. It's because it's the only thing you haven't done. Acceptance is very difficult. People say, oh, he's just saying acceptance, that's all. It's like, no. You don't know how hard this is. You haven't done it. You think you know how to do it, but you don't. And I get it. I didn't either. And so like, that's kind of what always happens. Acceptance becomes kind of a difficult practice. And so it becomes kind of hard to do it. And so in the beginning, it's very easy to resist, to avoid, to go to catastrophizing. Rather than focused on that, just allow the symptoms to be there and continue on with your day. Don't make the symptom such a big deal. Don't make the emotion such a big deal. Don't put your feelings on such a high pedestal. Just let them be there. Just recognize that it's just due to excess stress. That's all this is. That all that you've experienced is just due to excess stress, and that if you just stress about it more, it makes things worse. But if you just give your nerves a chance to rest, your nerves are begging you to stop. If your nerves could talk, it would say, Shaan, please stop stressing. We're trying to heal. Can we just heal so that we can just go back to living and we don't have to be in this fight or flight response anymore? But you're naturally thinking, oh, but what if it's this? What if it's that? Okay, let me watch this video. Let me watch that YouTube video. Let me watch this. Let me see what Shaan would say here. Let me DM him. Let me do this. Let me do that. You know, and so like, rather than doing that, just not needing to fix it. Anyways, that's a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more. Let me go ahead and answer some questions. Sorry, I'm thirsty too. I tend to lose my voice a lot on these things. So I tend to talk 100 miles an hour. Wow, we have a lot of questions. Okay. This is funny. I'm having brain fog. Am accepting now. Wow, it's gone. I think you're being a little facetious there. I'm pretty sure you're just joking. I understand. I actually find it funny. Guys, when you accept it, it doesn't go away immediately. Yeah. Like a lot of people are like, okay, I'm accepting. It's not gone. Shaan, it's not gone. And so the idea is that, look, you've picked up a lot of momentum. When you're accepting, it doesn't go away overnight. See, you guys really want this to go away immediately. I understand. I get that. But I will promise you one thing. This doesn't go away immediately. It goes away. It goes away fully, but it doesn't go away immediately. And so when people want things to go away immediately, you have like a dollar sign on your face for people to sell you things or market things or do this or do that. This thing is more focused on long-term freedom. Yeah. This is like, okay, it's going to be there just a little bit longer. Just hang tight. Imagine you've broken your leg. You can't be like, I want it fixed right now. Like, it's like the doctors are going to laugh. They're going to be like, look, that's not how stuff works. That's not how the human body works. This is the exact same thing. You accepting once doesn't make this go away immediately. It takes time. Nerves are stubborn. Nerves take some time to heal. So give it the time. One of the things a lot of people have to cultivate during recovery is patience and consistency. So it's really important to do that. Now, Shaan, I'm not patient. Well, you have to cultivate that. There's no way around it, because then what happens is your own character flaws stop you from your own recovery. And so, a lot of people say they want recovery, but then, when they have to fix these character flaws and patience, consistency, not talking negatively to themselves, people don't want to do that, and they don't, because it's hard and it's not easy. And, and so that's why sometimes it hinders people's recovery, and it shouldn't, because it's like, okay, if you want recovery, that should be primary. And if that means there's some character flaws that's holding you back, well then, address those so that you could focus on recovery. For me, all I cared about was recovery, to be honest with you. I was like, look, I want to get out of this because I don't want to deal with this. I just want to go back to living and having fun and enjoying my life. And so if that meant that I had certain flaws or certain things that I needed to fix, well, good. Maybe recovery will make me a better person too. Maybe I'll come out of this experience even better than I was before. And that's exactly what happened. And that's what we exactly found with a lot of individuals too. So I hope that helps. Have you helped people with symptoms 24/7? Of course. Most people experience symptoms 24/7. Is it a good idea? Is it good to ditch coffee? Doesn't matter, in my opinion. A lot of people say don't, avoid coffee. I feel like, avoidance in itself is a bigger problem than just drinking the coffee. If you understand that coffee does stimulate the nervous system. The issue isn't that your nervous system gets sensitized or that it's stimulated. The problem is that when it happens, you respond in fear. So if you understand the mechanics and if you're focused on recovery correctly, it shouldn't matter. I would say go ahead. There's a lot of clients in the program, they're drinking coffee every day. It's totally fine. They know how to respond. Now, some people will also actively choose, you know what, Shaan, I don't really feel like having coffee. I'd rather pick and choose my battles. And it's not that big of a deal. My nerves are a little sensitized. Maybe when it desensitizes a little bit more, I'll try it again later. But, I know, because I can see them, I meet them, that, they're focused on the right steps, that they're actually making progress. That's fine. But if you're not focused on recovery, it doesn't matter, right? It's kind of like think about somebody who's bodybuilding, right? Like, it's like asking, does supplements matter? Like, how big of a deal is supplements? That's not the big deal, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're taking supplements or not. If you're not working out and dieting, it doesn't matter about supplements. It's kind of like that with coffee. It doesn't matter about coffee as if you're not focused on the solution and understand the mechanics, So that's how I look at it. These are more side stuff, not really important things. The main important things are understanding whatever you guys do after. I always say the same thing, which is, look, if you guys don't want to drink coffee for health reasons, that's fine. If you guys want to drink coffee for health reasons, that's fine. But it shouldn't be an anxiety reason. Personally, I don't think it should. I don't think anything should be based on your anxiety, right? The whole idea is becoming free of it. So in order to be free of it, you shouldn't be making decisions on it. Anyone have anxiety about getting the coronavirus? Yeah, that's the world. That's really the world. Whether you have anxiety or not, I mean, I think it's been, it's a natural fear, and with the increased communication, with the internet, naturally there'd be some fear to it. Yeah. I'm going outside alone now. I was agoraphobic, but my confidence is not coming, and having ant crawling on my head skin for 3 months now. Okay, yeah. HER devil, I'm not really sure what your question is, yeah? Go ahead and respond a little bit more. Cool, guys. How can I stop my mind? Okay, so one of the questions is, how do I stop my mind always telling me things? Like I'm doing one thing in the background, I'm evaluating everything, please help. Okay, well, what you're really saying is, how do I get my mind to stop thinking? Look, it's pretty interesting. It's like, like the brain is the only organ you guys want to stop working. I never hear anyone say, guys, how do I make my heart stop beating? I mean, I guess in a way they do when they're struggling with health anxiety, but it's like, fully stop. What if I say I can get you to fully stop? You're like, no, I don't want that to happen. Or like your kidneys to stop working, or your liver to stop working. You guys be like, no, that's fine. But when it's like, hey, your mind, yeah, I don't want to have any thoughts. Like the mind will, when you guys are struggling with anxiety, the mind will go faster, right? Just like your heart palpitates more, your mind will think more. It'll be doing more cost benefit analysis. It'll be thinking more, it'll be catastrophizing more. How do you deal with that? How do you get that to go away? Again, understanding that the mind does do that. And the second thing is, you don't have to engage with every thought, right? A thought is just a thought. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean you need to act on it. Doesn't mean you need to engage with it. Just let it be there. What I always say is, label that thought as an anxious thought. Label it as an anxious thought first, because when you label it, it gives you some distance. It gives you distance from the thought. You're not identified with the thought. If you're identified with the thought, then you're always fighting it. If you don't identify with the thought, well, then it's an anxious thought. Well, okay, if it's part of anxiety, what do? Just let it burn itself out and continue on. That's all you got to do. Much easier said than done. I know how difficult it is. And I know, like, especially how the mind can be like, no, you really need to focus on this. But again, if that's your issue, you're still getting tricked into the anxiety cycle. Yeah. And so I made videos on that. And, it's a very common issue. Even in the mentorship, there's so many people that struggle with the same thing in the beginning, but over time they notice the mind subsides. The thoughts aren't racing as much. They can go back to living. It's not about anxiety 24/7. So that's exactly how it looks like. So guys, keep asking me your questions. Yeah. I'm kind of going through these kind of quick. I'll answer a couple more and then I'll get back into the subject. Okay. And if you guys want me to kind of go in a little bit more detail of certain things that I've said about the solution for recovery, I'll do that as well. There's some medication questions. I personally don't prefer talking about medication, just because this is a forum I can't really control, in the sense that I don't really know what y'all's specific situations are. And so I get a little bit hesitant about talking about these things. I do talk about it with my mentorship, but I know these guys, and, they're obviously my mentorship. I'm guiding them. So there I talk about it more. Here it just gets a little bit, for me, it's an ethical thing about talking about meds a little bit, just because it's everybody's a little bit in a different situation. So I don't want to say something that kind of comes off in someone's situation that's different. Plus, it's very complicated. Just the idea of talking about this thing, you kind of have to get into it a lot, and I don't think I would have that time. So I may avoid that answer. Don't hate me. It's just for ethical reasons. How do I know I am recovering? That's a good question. How do you know when you're recovering? I would define it as a couple of ways. Now, most people would define the recovery as, okay, I'm not getting symptoms anymore. That's true, where their symptoms are going away. But before that happens, there's a couple of prerequisites for it. The first thing is, How do you know you're recovering? When you're no longer scared of your symptoms. Yeah. I would say that's one of the prerequisites. The second thing is you're no longer trying to fix it. You're tired of it now. You're like, okay, this is getting old. I need to go back to like living. I don't really care so much about these symptoms. Let them be there. So an indifference. So I would say, yeah, indifference and I guess not letting it scare you, which is kind of both the same thing. If you can be indifferent to it and not trying to go into fix-it mode, that's where recovery really starts. For me, recovery actually really started when I understood it was anxiety. And so for me, it's so interesting, guys. So for those of you guys that don't know my story, I thought I was struggling with, I fell into like a panic attack. I had multiple panic attacks. And then I had debilitating physical symptoms. I became agoraphobic. It was really bad. My recovery, okay, the best day of my life, genuinely, the best day of my life was on my birthday. I don't know if it was I think it was my 23rd birthday. I had a huge panic attack in the morning and I got rushed to the ER. And I'd gone to the ER multiple times. My parents were annoyed as hell that they had to take me to the ER again, but I was so adamant. And went to the ER, young ER doctor, super young. Like I felt like he was only like 5 years older than me, but I'm sure he was a lot older. And this guy was the most blunt guy I'd ever seen, ever. Like he looked at my record, my medical records, and looked at me and he's like, "What's wrong with you, dude?" And like he didn't come from a frame of like, "Yo, like tell me what's wrong." He's just like, "What are you doing here? Why do you keep coming here? Like you like, don't you have anything better to do? Like I have actual patients that are actually in trouble and you keep coming down here every couple of months. Like what's your problem?" And that was the best day of my life. Can you believe that? Now, when that happened, I was furious. I was so upset that happened. Because you guys, I know just like you guys, I was the exact same way. So many people had told me, "Yo, Shaan, just let this go. Shaan, why are you so focused on this? Shaan, there's nothing there. Why are you always focused on this? Let it go, let it go, let it go." And I couldn't let it go. And I wanted to let it go. I wanted to go back to living, but I just couldn't. The physical symptoms were just too strong. The anxious symptoms were just there. The feelings of unreality were too strong. Like I just couldn't go back and live. I just couldn't do it. I wanted to. And so here's this doctor who like just comes in, who has no idea of my struggles. He just looks at a paper and just looks at me and says, "Hey, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here?" So I actually at that time was really, I got really upset. You know, I got really mad. I said some things. I was really pissed. And he told me, "Okay, fine. Whatever procedures you want, whatever tests you want, we'll get them done. Whatever you want, come up with any one single one." And this was all during a time where I didn't even have health insurance. And so I was just going through one lab work and, test to another. By the end, they found nothing. I thought by this time, guys, I'd Google search so much. I felt like I knew everything about like the human body. Like, I feel like I knew every medical thing out there. And yet I was wrong. It was nothing. And it was the best day of my life because for the first time, I understood maybe this is anxiety. Like maybe this is anxiety. And that changed everything. So guys, if I get kind of like sometimes emotional and be like, like if I get like that sometimes, it's because genuinely this saved my life. Like this genuinely saved my life. So I get kind of passionate about this kind of stuff, and I know what you guys are going through. I get very like emotional because I've been there. Like when you guys talk about your symptoms, I feel them. I feel them because I had felt them before. So sometimes I get a little bit like emotional about it, but that was the best day of my life. And I would say that's where my recovery really started. That's how I knew when I was recovering, because for the first time I understood, oh my God, these are just anxiety symptoms. Thank God, because I thought I was going to die from some weird thing where I thought I was going crazy. Okay, it's just anxiety. Okay, that's not so bad. Okay, anxiety. Okay, well, we could do with that. I could do something about that, And so that's where really my recovery started. And naturally, that's where kind of some of the fear went away too. So I hope that helps. It was also my most expensive day. Yeah, that was the day I went into debt. For those of you guys that didn't know, in the US, I mean, if you don't have health insurance, I think I spent on unnecessary medical procedures, probably in lab work, probably close to $30,000. So I spent a lot. as a young kid, 22 years old, I never grew up with college debt, none of that stuff, but like I all of a sudden got this medical debt. Now I obviously cleared that a long time ago, but like just tells you that, if you fall into the cycle, how expensive it can be. All just for someone to tell you, to getting out is just by yourself. If you just do a few things correctly, you just come out. You don't need to do all these things. And especially here in the US, it kind of sucks because, if something like that happens, especially if you don't have healthcare, like when I did, because I was living in Canada at the time. In Canada, we had universal. It was, it kind of hit me a little hard. But, it's still at the end all good news, because at the end I was so glad that it was anxiety. I know it's really hard for you guys to believe, but like looking back, I was so happy it was anxiety and nothing else. Like I was so happy that like there wasn't some underlying medical issue, which at the time I was wishing, but I'm so glad it wasn't. I'm so glad. So anyways, let's stick to the questions there for now. Okay, so recap, okay, for everybody. Understanding the mechanics of anxiety is so key. That's really where my YouTube channel, like that's really where I try to highlight. I really try to help you understand, because if you can understand, then recovery happens on its own. So sometimes people are like, what is the solution? What is the solution? I've written that out on the report for you guys. But, even if you guys get kind of stuck and you guys are watching the videos, I can understand how difficult it must be. I personally wish I would have had somebody guide me, or like a team to guide me personally. I really do. Now, I didn't have that luxury. I really didn't, because back in the day, nobody talked about it. Claire Weeks was dead. Paul David, I think, just had a book and a blog at the time. I don't even think maybe he was helping people, but like I didn't know about it. And so I really wish somebody would have just taken me by the hand and just showed me how to get out, And so, if that's you, we do have a mentorship program. We are very like strict about who we allow in there. If you guys want to apply, it's byebyepanicapply.com, or you can just go to any of the YouTube videos of mine and just click the link for mentorship and apply. And if you guys are a good fit, I'll take you guys under my own wing. And if you guys can't afford it, that's totally cool. There's a bunch of free content here you guys can watch. I go really in depth. You may just need to figure it out on your own. Maybe that means you will make a little bit of mistakes, but who cares? The focus is on recovery. Yeah, that's the main thing. Okay, understanding the mechanics of anxiety. Then number 2 is the solution. If you understand that this is happening because of your resistance, because of the fact that you're always fighting the symptoms, well, if you allow the symptoms to be there, they don't go away overnight. They don't go away right away. But long-term, what happens is that your nervous system desensitizes, your nerves desensitize. You slowly come out of the stress response. As a result of the stress response, like desensitizing and coming back to baseline, well, what that means is now your symptoms start going away. It's almost like the body follows the mind here. So, I normally find people that are experiencing DPDR, that tends to go away a little bit later. Same with brain fog. A lot of you guys have feelings where like you guys don't feel normal 100%, or even the confidence isn't there. That also happens later. But like the symptoms start subsiding, the mind's kind of slowly like dies down. Now this happens in layers. Yeah, think of it as like an onion. Like it's not like all the symptoms go away all at once. Like symptoms fall off. The less stubborn ones fall off, and the more stubborn ones stay on just a little bit longer. Okay, so that's the solution. And for the solution, I also have an acronym that I use, which is the AWARE acronym. Again, as long as you have the attitude of allowing, that's the main key. You guys can use the acronym or not. AWARE just again is acknowledge and accept, wait and watch, action, repeat, end. As long as you guys can focus on just allowing, you guys don't have to worry about the acronym. It's just don't fight it and get busy. Okay, so that's the second step. Now the third step, I'll make a separate mastermind part 3 of it, which is dealing with setbacks. Now this is where you're actually making progress. Yeah, dealing with setbacks only occurs when you're genuinely making progress. Too many people think about setbacks too quickly. They're worried about setbacks before they're even focused, before they're even accepting correctly, and that's natural. I get it. Like, you guys want to think more ahead. It's like thinking about recovery before you've even focused on recovery. It's like, I look at anxiety recovery as kind of like climbing a mountain, right? Just focus on your 2 feet. Just focus on what's in front of you and just take the next step. Don't worry about the mountain. Yeah. If you just focus on your 2 feet, just keep walking, you'll get to the top. But if you're too focused on the mountain, if you're too focused on the summit, it feels too far. And it feels like no matter how much you're walking, it feels like there's no difference. So it becomes discouraging. Just focus on your 2 feet. That's all you need to do. You'll get to the mountain. You'll get to the summit. You will see for yourself what recovery is like. You don't have to take my word for it. Don't take any of our words for it for sure. And nobody's, no coach, no therapist, no me, no none of that. Focus on do the right steps, see for yourself. You'll see it for yourself. You'll see what I mean. You'll see what a lot of people who talk about recovery, who come out, they'll tell you exactly. And like you looking back, you'll be like, oh, that's what they mean. You guys could look at the success stories and, you know, you'll go back and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see now. Okay. They were saying that, but I wasn't sure. But now, you know, now I see it. So that's really the key. So that's part 3, right? Yeah, dealing with setbacks. Then the 4th one is developing core confidence. So if you guys notice, even some people asked already, Shaan, I feel like the symptoms are fading, but I'm not my old confident self, or the joy isn't there, or, you know, I still don't feel 100% like my old self. That happens later. Developing core confidence. And the 5th step is never falling back into the cycle. So once you develop core confidence, you slowly become back to your old self. But the key about recovery, guys, is not about just coming out of this. You don't want to fall back into this either. You should never fall back into this cycle again. You guys should have learned what happened and not fall back in. That's a huge part. So in the mentorship, there's 2 parts that we focus on: getting you out and making sure you never fall back in. That's super key. Because if you fall back in, then you didn't learn anything. You didn't learn it. There's no reason to fall back in. I always say the people that are most likely to fall back in are the people that never fell in the first time. They're the most likely to fall back in. The people that are least likely to fall back in are the people that have already came out. That's it. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Let's go ahead and go through a few more questions. Claire Week's book is great. I love her videos. I do too. Cool. Shaan, I'm finally beating DPDR slowly. My vision is fine now, but I still feel cut off from reality. Yep. Just need to give it more time, man. What was your first symptom to go away and last symptom to go away? So for me, okay, so let's put it this way. The symptom that's going to be last to go away is the one that scares you the most. The one that you're scared of the most. So for everybody, that's different. For me, it was digestive issues. So that was the last one to go away. Which was the first one to go away? The one you don't care so much about. It's true. It's honestly true. So for everybody's different. If you're more scared of DPDR, that'll be the last thing to go away. If you're scared of palpitations, that'll tend to be the last thing to go away. If you're scared of intrusive thoughts, that'll be the last thing to go away. It's always what you're scared of the most. But recovery lies behind what you fear the most too, yeah? So what was my first symptom? I don't really remember. I know my last symptom was digestive issues though. Can anxiety get worse during recovery? I think what you're trying to say is, can the symptoms get worse? Symptoms are a gradient, right? Some symptoms are worse, some symptoms are better. The idea is that recovery is kind of like this, but the idea is that it should go upward. So sometimes, yeah, could it be worse? Yeah. But again, I wouldn't see what that question is really saying is that I'm too hyper-focused on the anxiety. As long as you're responding, it shouldn't matter if the anxiety is up or down. I get it. Long-term, the symptoms should go away, right? That's all you guys want. That's what I wanted too. But it's like, okay, it's like growing a tree. You're like, Shaan, I want to grow this beautiful, amazing tree, just like you have. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let me see the tree. Well, okay, it's not there. Okay, well, let's grow the tree. And so when it's like focused on growing the tree, I'm always like, okay, guys, like focus on sunlight, focus on fertilizer, focus on the soil, focus on that. But you're like too focused on the tree, right? So the idea is like just focus on the response. Don't focus so much on how high or low the anxiety is. Just focus on the response. So it's weird, right? Like if you guys just focus on the response, the tree grows. The symptoms go away. But if you're too focused on the tree, if you're constantly digging it up and seeing how much the seed is growing, it's not going to work that way. Your seed is never going to grow. It's never going to grow because you're screwing up the process. Stop screwing it up. Stop constantly monitoring it. Just let it be. Just focus on the response. Again, if you can fix the response, the cycle breaks. That's what you want. You'll break the cycle. Great question. Did colors seem dim to you, Shaan? It feels like everything is a tint grayer. Yes. Yes. Even if when you guys hear me talk about recovery, I talk about the colors becoming brighter. The colors becoming more vivid. It's because I felt it was darker. It was so funny because I'm here in Texas, it's south, really warm. I'm here in Austin, Texas. Always sunny. But I felt like during my recovery, it was kind of always cloudy. It felt like that, but it was always sunny. It's just everything felt kind of grayer and darker. So yeah, very normal, very normal. Yeah, okay, this is a good question too. I like this. Andrew asks, can you give examples of wrong responses? I've cut out Googling my symptoms, but reassurance is the wrong response I can see. Googling symptoms, asking for reassurance, trying to analyze what's happening. That's a wrong response. Because look, let's look at analyzing. Why are you analyzing? You're analyzing because if you can figure this out, you can stop it. But anxiety doesn't work that way. You can't think your way out of anxiety. That's not how this works. Most people try to solve anxiety. You don't solve anxiety. You respond. It's almost like you lose the battle. You're like, fine, anxiety, just do whatever you want. I don't care. But because of that, you win the war. So what I mean by that is reassurance, yes, for sure. If you're constantly analyzing or try to fix these symptoms, that's bad. Here's a better way to really look at it. Now, this gets a little bit nuanced. And Andrew, I don't think you're part of the mentorship, so it's harder to describe this to you. I know my clients would get it. If you're doing anything about your anxiety, that's the wrong response. If you're ever doing anything for the anxiety, that's bad. So think about it that way. Think about that, yeah? If you have to do something, that's bad. If you look at everybody's questions, they're still not responding correctly because the question is, Shaan, how do I deal with this? Shaan, what do I do about? See, the second you do anything about it, this won't work. So that's the key. If you can understand that, that's hard to grasp. This is why you could say meditation doesn't work, breathing techniques doesn't work, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Why? Because you're doing something to make it go away. You see what I'm saying? So if you ever try to make something, if you ever try to do something to make it go away, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. It doesn't matter. You know, people that try to differentiate DPDR from anxiety, it's the same thing. Like they're like, well, you know, DPDR is a little bit different from anxiety. I get that, but the response is the same. If you're trying to fix it, it stays. If you don't try to fix it, it goes away. So who cares? You know? So why can't I at least get a break from this? Look, even if you get a break from this, because look, when people progress and they get better, they get breaks from it, but then it comes back. And then they're like, oh God, Shaan, it's back. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, just the key shouldn't be trying to break from this. The key is just letting it be, not trying to fix this. The issue isn't from the symptoms. I know that sounds like really insensitive to a degree, but it's not. And I'm saying this from the symptoms kind of really affecting me too, which is like, the issue isn't the symptom. The issue is the resistance to it. It's really true. If you could stop resisting, would the symptom be there? This is the last point I'll make. Okay, so guys, I've made videos on this, on recovery. Recovery isn't what you think, right? Where you get a break from these symptoms and these symptoms go away. What happens, that does happen, the symptoms do go away, but there's an intermediary step. The intermediary step is you don't care if the symptoms are there anymore. Okay, so you have the symptoms, you're like, oh, I want this to go away. Then you focus on recovery. And then so one of the steps for recovery is you don't care if the symptoms are there. Okay, I don't care if the symptoms are there. Now the symptoms are there, you don't care so much, but they're still there. Yeah, but you notice there's not that much resistance. Then the next step is that the symptoms go away. But what most people try to do is they're like, I don't want the symptom goes away. But that's not true. You have to get to the stage of it doesn't matter if the symptoms are there. So as long as you guys focus on the symptoms not being there, then that ends up going away. I said that pretty quickly, so I'm going to answer just a couple more questions, yeah? I hope you guys, do you guys enjoy these? Let me know if you guys enjoyed these. If you guys want me to do more of this. Did you guys find this really helpful, this mastermind? If I did more of these, would you guys really appreciate it? Would it really help you guys on your journey? I'd be happy to do it. Good. Okay, you guys are saying yes. I want to answer one more question because I really do enjoy these. Maybe you're the reincarnation of Claire Weeks, Shaan. No, Claire Weeks. Okay, honestly, to me, Paul David was probably a bigger influence than Claire Weeks. Because I found Paul David first. And I feel like Paul David was more modern. See, Claire Weeks was talking more about. She was dealing with the social ills of her time. The social ills included, they do electroconvulsive therapy. They used to do that a lot. Now they don't do that anymore. It's too extreme. They do it, but only for very rare cases. But it's not even really anxiety related. It's like other issues. And so she was dealing with those kinds of things. That's what she was like talking against, and like psychoanalysis to a certain degree. Those things aren't as prolific anymore. Like they're just not as. Now the issue is the Googling. Google has really, Google search engine has really changed things up. Sensationalized news has really become the issue. So it's like the solution is the same, but because we're in a different context, we're in a different time. The reason you guys are staying in the cycle are for different reasons. And so, I think Paul David kind of clarified that a little bit too, but he was also at a time where the internet was just getting big too. And now we're at a point where the internet's gotten really big, So but look, at the end of the day, myself, Paul David, Barry McDonough, I forgot his last name. I don't even know how to say his name, to be honest with you. Claire Weeks, people that recover from this, if you notice something genuine, we're all saying the same thing. Sure, we may have small disagreements on certain things like coffee, but if you look at all of us, we all fell into the cycle, okay? Every single one of us. When we come out, 99.9% of all what we say is all the same. Why is that? Why do we all say the same thing? I'm not trying to differentiate myself from them. I'm not different from them. The only thing that's different about me is I'd rather just guide people to recovery myself and have a team that does it rather than, you guys just reading a book, because there's limitations to that. But if you look at really the essence of what we're saying, we're all saying the same thing. And I'm not dogmatic. I don't care about technique. I don't care about principles. I just care about what works. That's the only thing. And this is the only thing I've found that works. Nothing else works. And the more I do this, the more I'm convinced this is the only thing that works. And I'm still open to finding other things that work. Nobody showed me anything. There's nothing that showed me that, anything works better than this. And I think they think the same thing too. And this is just the only way out. So guys, have some comfort in that. If you really look at the pioneers, the people that are really talking about it, if you listen to what they're saying, they're all saying the same thing. So it's not an issue of, too much misinformation, which that is true. But if you look at the core people that are focused on recovery, we're all saying the same thing. The issue is that it's not easy to do this, and it's difficult to do this alone. And it's not a simple thing you fix. There's a few things to fix, but recovery is simple at the same time. That's probably one of the biggest things about recovery. Sometimes, honestly, my clients get upset by how easy recovery is, how simple it is. And they get a little bit discouraged based on like how simple it was and how complicated they made it. But that's good. That's good news, right? You'd rather have anxiety be too simple, the recovery too simple. That being said, it's still the hardest thing you're going to do. It's still difficult, right? Because what you guys are feeling is very uncomfortable. It's not fun. It was the hardest thing I ever did. But at the same time, it was also the simplest, right? You would think if it was the hardest thing, it would also be the most complicated. That's not true. They're mutually exclusive. More difficulty doesn't mean like more difficult, I guess. Anyways, guys, I hope this made sense. I just really like reading y'all's comments too. Guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I hope you guys really enjoy this. We're going to do part 3 soon. If you guys, like I say, if you guys want to be just working with me and the team, other success stories you've seen on there, America's on there, Kaylee, Caesar, all these guys, if you just want us to just help you get to recovery, you guys can always apply. And if you guys are a good fit, we'll just take you to recovery ourselves. And, you know, you guys don't have to figure this out on your own, piecemeal this. Shaan, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? We answer all of these questions in the mentorship. Every single question you guys ask, we answer all of this in the mentorship. Not only that, we help people literally get out. There are people in this, like in the mentorship, that have like asked these questions and have also gotten better and are getting better. So like, you know, you guys don't need to figure this out. You know, don't worry about piecemealing this. If you guys want to apply, that's cool. If not, that's totally fine too. Still always coming out with free content. Anyways, you guys have a great weekend, and I'm coming out with a lot more videos. So really excited about that. Take it easy, guys.